All right, what's up, YouTube? Take Five Podcast. Today's topic is top five newer bands. All right, what'd you come up with for number five?
For my number five, when I started digging into this, like newer bands, this number five is one that I discovered from digging into this. And so with newer bands, for me, I'll just be honest about it. If it's like rock bands, whatever, um, there's always none that I may not necessarily dislike it, um, but just not everything about it grabs me. You know, with a lot of newer bands, I guess.
Mhm.
But upon discovering this one, um, these dudes look like they're from Chicago area. Um, looks like they've had a few releases out, but looks like they have one that's pretty recent that they recorded over COVID. They just finally came out called Bad Mother. Um, I don't I don't want to compare them to things. It has a classic rock vibe, but they're a newer band.
Mhm.
Yeah, but they're definitely doing something their way. And they were a band that did grab my attention. Like I said, from digging into who were some newer bands are that I may not have known about. So I'm
Yeah,
glad that we did do this and that I did discover them. Bad Mother.
awesome. I'll have to check them out. Yeah, this was. I mean, because I try to stay updated on on music and stuff. But doing this was kind of hard because a lot of bands I've discovered recently, I go through and find out that they were actually been out longer than I thought. So what I was doing was it doesn't matter when they formed as long as their first album came out after at 2010 or later. And so that's how I ended up doing mine because I have a bunch of them that I would have had on here, but I was like, well, shit, man, they didn't, they've been out for 20 years. I didn't realize that. All right, so my number five, I've talked about this band before. Most of mine, I think I've mentioned before, but um, a Brazilian rock band. They started in 2002, but the first album didn't come out to 2011. Elixir Inc.
Yeah, I have heard you talk about them.
Yeah, I've talked about them a few times. Yeah, they're a great band. Just you know, kind of like a modern hard rock band.
I don't
They've
know if I
released
heard them, but I
records.
do
Yeah,
remember that
yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah. Check them out. They're pretty good.
All right, right on.
All right,
And you
we've
say
got for
they're from
number four.
Brazil?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
huge over there, and and they're not well known over here.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, okay. So for my number four, I'm pretty sure I brought this band up in a prior episode. They've been at it, looks like less than 10 years ish. Um, right now they're a trio. Looks like they've been a four-piece before, but they're a trio. Um, got a female bass player, female guitar player, does vocals, and the drummer's a guy from Iowa, a band called The Rumors. Um, got a punk feel to it, but yet it's very still rock and roll. Um, and this year alone, I've been noticing they've been doing some DIY type touring. They played this fest in Chicago just a week or two ago, Motoblot, I believe it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Um, looks like it was a like a motorcycle kind of pin-up theme type thing. They played that one day. It was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Nashville Pussy headlined on one day. Super Suckers played. Looks like some bunch of rockabilly bands, I'm guessing. So they have a few releases out. Fun band. They seem like they got good energy. Watching stuff on YouTube. So yeah, they've always kind of stuck with me. I always kind of find myself, checking, listening to something of theirs on my YouTube music, the Rumors from Iowa.
Oh yeah, awesome. All right, my number four is a three-piece sibling punk band from Missouri, Radkey.
Never heard of that.
Never heard of them?
I don't think so.
They're and I mean they're older now. I mean, but they came out in like 2010, and they were like teenagers. It's
Hmm.
three black dudes. You know, they're all three brothers. Man, they're getting kind of big. They've toured with like Foo Fighters. They've been on Rock on the Range. I seen them at Roomba. Like they're
How long ago? At
I seen them
Rumba.
at Roomba about 2015 maybe.
Okay.
They just played was it, I think the basement or what's the one
Yeah.
above the basement?
A&R Bar.
Yeah, A&R Bar. They just played there like a couple months ago. But
Damn.
they're they're punk. They kind of remind me a little bit like the Misfits, but not as fast and not as like evil. You know,
Okay.
but like his voice kind of sounds like Glenn Danzig in the Misfits era. But I mean, but they're really good.
Yeah, now it's enough for me to check it out. I'm not familiar with. I may check it out and go, oh shit, I kind of knew this, but
Yeah,
no, I don't think I
I
do
figured
though.
you know the name, yeah, because I mean,
Doesn't
they're
sound
kind of big.
familiar now.
Yeah, they're getting pretty big.
Huh.
But they've released two records and three EPs. I remember I came across their video a few years ago, it popped up, and I um I go down the rabbit hole of a lot of like Afro punk bands, you know, which it's black punk bands, and so
Hmm.
I have a lot of them on my list. But that's how I discovered them, you know, about 8 years ago, whatever, and been hooked ever since.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man.
All right, what you got for number three?
My number three, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned these guys also. I believe when we did the G band episodes, they're from Canada. I know they've been around for a few years. I know they put an EP out in like 2020. I don't know if these guys have even toured really. But they last fall, I believe it was, they put out a new song, a single, a song called Blue Collar Blues, and also a cover of a real obscure band, a song called Polecat Woman. Um, I mean, these guys are fucking good, man. This Blue Collar Blues song, I rock it all the fucking time in the car. The band's called Good as Gone. Like I say, from Canada, I believe, like BC, north of Seattle there, but I don't think they've really played much, especially toured. But that EP is good, but that Blue Collar Blues song is real fucking good. And I do like that cover, and I think it's pretty awesome they went as deep as they did, to cover a song and a
Mm-hmm.
band that obscure, really. A
Yeah,
three-man army, I think, is the band that they covered, the Polecat Woman song. Um, Check them out, especially that Blue Collar Blues song. Anybody, if you want something new, like a newer band and like I kind of mentioned, a lot of newer bands may not exactly there for me. That song, it is. I mean, it really is. Check it out, man. If you haven't, Good as Gone, Blue Collar Blues.
it's funny because when you said a G band from Canada, I have an honorable mention, which I'll get to in a little bit, which is a G band from Canada. I was like, oh shit,
Okay.
but it wasn't the same. All
Yeah.
right, my number three. I'm sure you've heard of this band. There was a lot of hype about these guys when they first came out. They formed in 2007, but their album didn't come out till 2016, and they kind of split up after that, and the singer guitar player went solo. But Unlocking the Truth,
No idea who that is.
you don't know them either. Oh
No,
man,
no.
they're another group of black kids from Brooklyn, and they're kind of thrashy. Um,
Unlocking the truth.
Unlocking the Truth. Yeah, they was.
Okay.
There's even a movie about them. They're like a documentary on them. Like they were these kids. They would play on on the streets in Brooklyn, and there's three kids, and and they eventually got signed. And they had high expectations for this band. It was like I said they split up after the one record, but that record is so good, man.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're
I,
yeah,
I
they
know nothing about them.
that's
That
crazy.
whole
Yeah.
story is interesting. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, check them out, and I think
Yeah.
the movie's even on YouTube. Like, check it out. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, these kids are probably 14 years old during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good shit. All
Right
right,
on.
what you got for number two?
Um, Number two, I only found out about a good, not even 2 years ago, maybe a year, thinking about it really. But this guy he's a guitar player, has a band, has a few albums out. The latest one, or the last one that he did, I believe was called Youngblood. Um, Doing his own thing. I mean, there's a lot of southern rock vibe, a lot of blues vibe, but this dude's really taking it to a modern day version of that kind of stuff. Marcus King band. You know him at all?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, like I said, very got all sorts of elements. Dude's an amazing guitar player, seemingly like one of the big names in the current guitar player world. Um, I just watched, I mean, even a podcast a few days ago. I don't know how old it was, but it was with for Sirius XM, uh Big J, uh Okerson and Dan Soder have a podcast on there. I forget the name of it right now, but they played on that, and it was the taping of that I watched. So I was like actually watching it along with hearing it, of course. But just goddamn, they were so good in that. And a girl I work with, a friend of mine from work, her and her husband went and saw him just a couple months ago in West Virginia. Good shit, man. Marcus King, man. I'm glad. I said it's been a year or a little more that I discovered that, but I said he's got a few things out. Dude's a sick guitar player, amazing voice too. He does vocals also. Um, and even from the little interview from that podcast that Dan Soder and Big J do, um, it's like I guess he's been playing with all the dudes in his band, and this dude's only like in his late 20s. I want to say he's like 27, 28. It's not even 30. And the dude's in his band, like he's known since like high school. Um, yeah, man, glad I found that, Marcus King band.
Yeah, I never heard of it. All right, my number two. I've talked about this band a lot too. Um, Punk band from Greece, but based in the U.S. The Barbed Wire Dolls.
Yeah.
They and I've spoken to them a lot, but anyway, like they recorded an album here in Columbus, and they did like a residency for like a month or whatever. Like every Wednesday, I'd go see them. And
Wasn't it work high five?
Shrunken Head,
Okay, yeah. Right around the corner then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. And like it was the same show every week, but it was so much fun, man. Like so much energy. Like at the time, they only had a singer, guitar player, and a drummer. So
And
you
the
didn't have a
singer
bass
was a
player.
woman, right?
Yeah, the singer's a woman, and she was just so entertaining, man. Just it kind of remind me of like a Wendy O. Williams without all the
Hmm.
stuff. You know what I mean? It was like she'd get up on the tables and just like yell at people, and like I remember they had a sports game on or something. She got up on there and was like, turn that shit off, and just it was so fucking it's so much fun, man. they're so good live.
And that's the band too that I don't know if you remember me. I told this story that I was at Magnolia Thunder Pussy, which is a
Hmm.
record store here, and I overheard a dude working there talking about meeting Tom Zutot. And Tom Zutot's the guy that signed Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses back in the 80s.
Hmm.
So I was like, did you just say Tom Zutot was recently in Columbus? And he was like, yeah, last night. And I'm like, why would Tom Zutot
Of
be
all
in
places.
Columbus? Yeah, he was like, oh, you know who he is? I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, he's the guy that signed Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses back in the 80s. And this dude's like, oh, I didn't know that. And I was like, okay, why was he here? He said that he was had some involvement with the barbed wire dolls. I
Hmm.
don't know if he was managing them or what he was trying to get him a record deal. I don't know what that was all about, but I don't think whatever he may have been working with him worked out because that was about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right around 10 years
That's
ago.
yeah, that's about right. That's about when I was seeing them. They I believe they were discovered by Lemmy.
Okay.
And I think they were on like on his label or something.
Hmm.
At least maybe for the first record. So yeah, like but I think so she was friends with him. I think he discovered them. Yeah, like that their first couple albums, man, was so good.
Yeah, I know of them obviously, and I knew basically everything they had recorded here. And but for a while there, I even like you said, as often as they played at Shrunken Head, I was like, damn, is this band like kind of living here now? Like I
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
but I guess it was because they were recording or whatever. Um
Yeah, they
like
I mean, I became friends with them like every week. I sat and talked to them, and I Isis, the singer, she gave me this shitload of like CDs of like local bands that like when they was on tour that they've given them CDs. She gave me all these CDs of all these local bands from like around the country. She's like, I have no use for these. So my guys, a lot of them find a lot of cool bands that way. I thought it was pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I
All
know.
right, all right, we got for number one.
Um this band is probably, in my opinion, the most popular of the newer bands that a lot of people know about. I've been following them on Instagram that they looks like they've recorded some new stuff over in Europe recently, like very recently, like this year, this spring even, I believe in Sweden, um, or if not there, somewhere in Europe, they were over there. Dirty Honey,
I had a feeling you'd say them.
yeah, yeah, Dirty Honey's got same thing, man. They're a newer band that's they do it for me, man. Dirty Honey. I know they've come through Columbus a couple times. Um, I regret not going and seeing them, man. If they come through again, I think I'll make an effort to actually go see them.
Yeah, and I know once they came with Disturbed, but I think they played either Basement or A&R Bar once. I think.
Well, I know they were here. I believe it was spring of last year with Mammoth, Wolfgang
Oh,
Van
really?
Halen, and I honestly, man, I was just lazy, didn't go.
Yeah,
I'm not all that into Mammoth, being real honest, and I
yeah.
know that's a newer thing. Um, just thinking about it. So I'll say that for an honorable mention, Mammoth. It's worth mentioning. Um, but yeah, it was at that Bluestone place is where they
Oh,
played.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Right on.
but yeah, if Dirty Honey comes through again, I'll probably make an effort to go see him, man.
That's cool. All right, my number one. If you followed the show for the last year, this band needs no explanation. The Midnight Devils.
Yeah, yeah.
They've been a guest on the show a few times. Um, their music's really good. But what makes them is their stage show, man. I mean, they're just their live performance. You was
Yeah,
there, Dustin, man. Like
yeah,
they're so much fun, man. You know,
yeah,
he comes
fun.
out in the audience and sings in the crowd and stuff. Like
Yeah,
if you get a chance to see him, they go check him out.
they were throwing out these the glowing like
Yeah,
halos to all the girls.
yeah,
Uh, I follow them on Instagram, and it looks like I think they're in Australia right now.
yeah. They are. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
yeah, you're right, man. They were fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool, doing episodes with them last summer.
Mm-hmm. All right. Um, you got some honorable mentions?
I have two,
Okay.
um, and one of the two is another band that I discovered going down this rabbit hole. Um, I'm pretty sure they're from Seattle. I know if it's not all women, I know there's some women in it, the singer, the guitar player, the bass player. I think they've maybe had a couple different drummers. Um, they're definitely doing something unique, um, kind of along the line artsy. Didn't dislike the music, but it did catch my interest kind of from the art side, I guess. And they're not a bad band. They're called Thunder Pussy. Not to be confused, there was a band called Alabama Thunder
Alabama. Yeah.
Pussy. That not the same band. This band's just Thunder Pussy from like I said, from Seattle. And I'm pretty sure Mike McCready from Pearl Jam has worked with them, like producing or some involvement with them. Um, so they caught my interest enough to throw them on as a honorable mention, being discovering a newer band.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I don't think they've been around that long, I believe less than 10 years. But my other honorable mention is a band I've heard a few times. I like it. I really haven't dove into them 100%, but I'm kind of on that road right now because I actually watched a YouTube video earlier today with the drummer. They did a rig rundown, which is a thing on YouTube where they'll talk to a guitar player, a bass player, drummer, whatever, and kind of go through like all the equipment they use. Well, that was interesting for me with this drummer from this band because he used Ludwig drums. I'm a huge fan of Ludwig drums. They have a very classic rock vibe. A lot of people, most people, compare them very much to Led Zeppelin. Greta Van Fleet.
I was wondering if they was gonna be brought up.
Yeah,
Like
definitely deserve to be brought up. Yeah.
yeah, like I know they get a lot of shit for they sound like Zeppelin, but they're not bad. They're
Yeah, not
yeah,
bad.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a Zeppelin fan, but there's so many bands. I mean, like Kingdom Come, like they sounded like Zeppelin, but people like
Yeah,
them. Like no band is original anymore. Like I think it's cool that kids that young are sounding like a band. That
as do
old.
I. Yeah.
I think that's
Um,
cool.
so like I say, after today, watching the thing with the drummer, I think I'm gonna start diving a little more into more of their stuff. I said I've obviously heard some songs. I do like it.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm gonna check out more for sure.
Yeah, like that first record had some jams on it.
Okay.
Was that all you had for honorable mentions?
Yeah, those are the two I had, man. Yeah.
All right, I have a couple. Here's the G band from Canada. I thought you were going to say Generals of Monrovia. They're
No
a
idea even who
Afro
that
punk
is.
band from Canada. They're pretty good. All right, then I hope I'm pronouncing this name right. It's Maafa. Um, a hardcore band from Brooklyn with a black female singer.
Hmm.
Then I had Red Arcade,
I've heard that name.
punk band from New York City. Um, Here's one that I just discovered recently, but they're like they've been out longer than 2010, but I want to put them on here just because I just discovered them. Um, Fit for Rivals. Have you heard them?
I don't think so. No.
Check them out. I think you might like them. They're kind of punkish, kind of rock and rollish, but they have a female singer and she has this real raspy voice. They're so good, man. They're like the catchy. It's kind of poppy punk, like hard rock mixed. They check them out.
Right on.
And then this band was almost on my top five. This is a Swiss avant-garde metal band who mixes African American spirituals with black metal. Zeal and Ardor.
Who is it again?
Zeal and Ardor.
Don't know him, man. You
It's
got me on this episode.
this I've actually been in this band for several years. It's real heavy, but then they'll do like African chants, like some you hear like in old slavery days or something. Like it's so unique, man. And they're heavy too, because then they'll scream, like it's probably one of the most unique bands you'll ever hear.
And from where again?
They're Swiss, from Switzerland.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think it's your style. Like I don't think you'll like them, but check them out just for because they're so different.
I got it. Yeah, yeah.
And they're
I respect
they're
that.
getting kind of big. I think they were on like Rockin' the Range this year or Sonic Temple, or whatever. I think they were on it either this year or last year. Yeah, they're pretty fucking amazing, man. All right, anything else?
No, it's I didn't have too much for this,
Okay.
but I got in who I wanted to mention. Yeah.
All right, album of the week.
Well, this week it was my pick again.
Yep.
I know I've talked about, when I really got hooked with music, when I knew it was my thing, 83, 84. This album came out in 85. And this is definitely an album for me of one of my top 15, 20 for sure. Because of that time and discovering it and how fucking huge they became from this album, which looking back on it now, 35 plus years, this is probably their most underrated album.
By far.
Motley Crue, Theater of Pain.
Very underrated.
Very underrated album, but Home Sweet Home, I think people would agree is the song that broke them, into the mainstream.
And then wasn't that the song that coined the term power ballad?
Probably, yeah.
I think it was,
probably. Yeah. They also had a video for Home Sweet Home, had a video for Smoking in the Boys Room, Brownsville Station cover. That fucking album has, in my opinion, a couple, really one of them particular, but a couple of the best Motley Crue songs.
I agree. I don't get the hate, man.
Yeah, I don't either.
Even they hate
don't
that
know
record.
why it's so underrated.
Yeah, like even they don't.
Right? Yeah. I've heard them all, diss it too. Yeah. But the song "Keep Your Eye on the Money" on that record.
I know you like that one.
Fuck, man. Yeah.
I've mentioned the guitar in "We Need a Lover Tonight." Oh, dude, that's so good, man.
Yeah. And that's once again one of those albums where, back then in the 80s, you and I were both cassette collectors. Like, side one, side two was almost two different worlds, and but once again, another album I could listen to all the way through.
Yeah.
Front to back. both sides, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, Huge album for me, man, huge. I even had, and I got it back then, but the girl I was married to found it. Crazy, she found this, and before she and I split up, we were living at my parents' house, and she found this that my mom obviously had kept this. It was a satin, almost like a varsity jacket style satin jacket that had the comedy tragedy on the back of it, and
Damn.
said, yeah, she found that. I mean, it was like ripped real bad, but like and it was small, it was like a medium. I mean, even like for like the 80s, it was a medium. And because I was a smaller kid back then, I'm not. So she even for a little while, she even wore it, which I thought was pretty fucking cool, but and like I said, I forgot about that, but for years, but that's so crazy she discovered that. But that's how huge that album and that band was for me. Like in those developing, dare I say developing years, or like I say, 83, 84, 85. And I'm like, all this amazing shit's coming out.
Hmm.
And I'm absorbing and eating every bit of it up that I can. Like, this is obviously pre-internet. So the only ways when you and I are only a year apart, the only way we could find new music and hear new music was MTV, our friends, people from school that had somebody else's cassette that we didn't have,
Hmm.
or, an older brother, siblings, whatever, or neighborhood kids, whatever, or going to the record store.
Record store
And
or like Metalhead.
physically, yeah, magazines also.
Yeah.
But going to a record store, and you've heard so many people our age and older talk about, you would just roll the dice on something because it looked fucking cool.
Yep.
And 90% of the time you were right,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying Theater of Pain was that, but back to my point, for me, that was in those very early 83, 84, 85, where I'm like, where I knew this is my thing, man, this is what I'm about. This is where my interest is, what I'm drawn to. And that album, once again, was a huge part of that. Yeah.
Now,
And
did you discover them on that album, or did
yeah,
you?
I
Okay,
knew
see.
of, I knew of Shout at the Devil. But if I'm being honest, I wasn't into him yet. I don't even think I had Shout on the Devil cassette prior to Theater of Pain. I don't think I did.
Yeah.
But
See,
I
that's
did
kind of
know.
how I was with Too Fast for Love, because Shout the Devil was the first album I got, and then I had to go back and hear Too Fast for
Right.
Love. So when Theater Pain came out, I was ready for it. You know what I mean? I was pumped that it was coming out, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know if it's people didn't like the look change, because that was like, they were super glam on that record. Like,
Absolutely. The
because
most
they're
glam,
going
really.
from looking evil, to like the whole glam thing. I was like, I don't know if that's what turned people off, but the music was so good, man. Like,
Yeah. I mean, there's all the songs, but like I said, Keep Your Eye on the Money is the one for me. The opening song, City Boy Blues,
yeah,
real good bluesy style. Because a lot of people that may not know, that was really Mick Mars' thing. He was a bluesy, he was into the blues rock kind of style playing. Even the song Louder Than Hell was I believe, I know I heard demo versions of that.
yeah.
Home Sweet Home. Then side two, man, like side two was like its own thing too, I mean, like I said, with the song you like, Raise Your Hands to Rock,
Chance to
man.
Rock.
Yeah, use it or
Um,
lose it.
yeah. I think I told the story in the Motley Crue episode, but um for Black History Month in ninth
Yeah.
grade, I um I wrote the lyrics to Fight for Your Right. and I turned it and I got an A on it. And my teacher was like, and I mean, and I put written by Nikki Six. I didn't, claim it as my own or whatever. And she was all like, "Man, that's cool. I didn't know they sung about that kind of stuff, and like, but that's how much I was into that I used that as,
Yeah.
in school.
Yep.
That's how fucking good that record is, man.
Yeah. Another song on it, man, Save Our Souls.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole record, man, to where I said, looking back on it, because for me, I've said it, I'm pretty sure I've said this before. I'm only into the 80s Motley Crue. Anything, you know,
yeah,
90s and beyond just wasn't what I wanted from Motley Crue. And it kind of started with Dr. Feelgood.
yeah,
Um, and I don't dislike Dr. Feelgood, but you said once again, looking back now, 35 plus years, people just consider this one of their most underrated records. And a lot of people may not even like, can, it may not be in their collection, if you will. I mean, they'll know, yes, Home Sweet Home. Everybody knows that.
yeah,
But I wonder how many even people know, like, oh, that's on Theater of Pain.
yeah, no
So
doubt.
yeah,
Same
yeah,
like
man,
Smoke in the Boys Room. I see, like,
yeah,
I think um they went downhill after that record. I mean, Girls, Girls, Girls had some good songs on it, but it wasn't solid like Theater. Dr. Phil Good was just too overproduced, too poppy. I mean, I like
I
Don't
knew
Go
I
Away
would say
Matt.
that.
I like She Goes Down. I mean, there's a couple songs on there I like, but Theater Pain was the last like solid beginning to end record that they put out, in my opinion.
Yep. And I'm not. Here's the thing, too. I'm not saying it's my favorite Motley Crue record.
Oh yeah, I'm
Okay.
not either,
Uh,
but
um, but like I said, it came. I was that was I experienced it how I experienced it while it was happening. How Home Sweet Home was blowing the fuck up on MTV. Smoking in the Boys Room was on the fucking radio. Never saw him. Would have loved to have seen him on that tour too,
yeah,
And those videos are good. A lot of the people, this, I'll bring this up, this, in hindsight, a lot of people kind of contribute why some people say it's not that strong of a record is because that was during when Nikki Six, I believe, was real fucked up on heroin, and that was the whole accident with Razzle had happened.
yeah, oh yeah,
So yeah, those were some kind of downtime for them. And even in the movie, The Dirt, they kind of it's touched on, it's recognized as it
yeah,
should have been.
because yeah, but yeah, and they just talk about how they hate it. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
see.
and
I mean,
changed the title and
yeah, like that. Their style did change because it was, besides their look, it was like a glam, kind of like a Poison, even though it's a pre-Poison, but kind of the Poison sound which came later, compared to Shout at the Devil, which was heavy, dark,
right.
and then you got like Too Fast for Love, which is, which even almost punkish,
I'm very
like,
punk,
but
and they
but
even
they
say that.
yeah, but each album, but then its thing is with Crue, each album changed because then after
Yeah,
that, like Girls Goes Girls is just like rock and roll. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it just so that's kind of what they did.
right. And I agree. I kind of think with Girls, 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 they kind of that was who Motley Crue had become
Hmm.
from those first three albums. Became what became Girls, 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 and Into Theater. Or fuck, I'm sorry, Doctor Feelgood. They found their sound, I guess, what was definitive Motley Crue. Um, but yeah, man, Theater of Pain. If anyone hasn't heard it, listened to it in years, or if anyone's never really checked it out, you can go do it. It's like I said, loud. Keep your eye on the money. And I know we talked about this. I even thought they should have done a video for that song, and I've
Hmm.
even kind of imagined what some of the imagery could have been. I think would have made for a great music video for that song.
Yeah, I always say that on when it comes to Motley Crue, the order they came out is the order that I like. Um,
I get it.
but
I know what you're saying.
that can change between theater or between Shot the Devil and Too Fast for Love. Like whatever one I'm listening to at that moment is my favorite one.
I get
Those
it.
two are so close. But
Yeah.
but at the top of my head, I'm like, oh, they're in order. Then
Yeah.
Doctor or Girls would be fourth and Dr. Phil would be fifth. But yeah, like
Yeah. Theater of Pain, no doubt, is my third favorite
yeah,
Motley Crue record.
that, yeah,
And Dr. Feelgood and Girls, Girls, Girls are after it.
yeah,
They're, you know, for 4 or 5.
yeah.
So I'm very much on the same page with you on that. Yeah, that way, yeah.
But you like Shout better, don't you?
Then Theater of Pain,
No, than Too Fast for Love.
like you said, it flip
It's
flops for
whatever
me
one.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Six.
yeah.
I'm just surprised because that just doesn't seem like your style. But maybe because it was a different
Say that,
time,
but
what I mean, back then,
it,
like
it was, and after that, I didn't really catch on to all the like. That's what I consider the hair bands, the
mm,
glam bands. What you and I have always called the glam bands. A lot
yeah,
of makeup, a lot of spandex, a lot of hair, and this like. I don't dislike a lot of Poison's music, but that it looked like it was a fun show. I know I saw him in the late '90s and early 2000s a couple times.
mm,
Fun band, but even with like Warrant, I didn't dislike their music, but that to me was the glam stuff.
yeah,
Now another band that I know is one of your all-time favorite bands, and their first album is Glam as Fuck 2, came out in '86. Is that first Faster Pussycat record? One of
mm,
once again another one of would make an all-time list for me because it
yeah,
came out during that time. The look is exactly that LA glam, but the fucking songs on that record are
yeah,
it's just that's rock and roll because it's so rock and roll.
yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
like all those bands were kind of like thrown together. Poison, Fast Pussycat, Warrant, L.A. Guns, all that. But I mean, if you actually listen to them, L.A. Guns and Warrant, they're not they're not the same style. You know what I mean? Like
I
LA
agree
Guns,
as
just
far as LA Guns.
that's
I do
those are
agree.
more like sleaze and just
Yeah.
more raw. That had even some punk influence on it. And Warrant was
Right.
just just straight up glam.
Hmm. And that's all good,
Yeah. But it just
but
mean they were all like kind of thrown in that same label, which and back then I agreed with it, but the older I gotten, I realized I like more of the sleaze bands better than the hair glam or whatever you want to call it. I mean, like I said, Pastor Pussycat had that sound, but they were more raw than. But even the first
yeah.
Poison record was pretty raw though, which I like that
And once
record.
again, music wise, I don't hate Poison.
Yeah, their first
I
record
do
was
like
great.
some of the first record, and I like some of the songs from the next couple records. And I know some of the first couple Warrant records,
See,
but
I
that
didn't.
style wasn't just what I wasn't drawn to that. I was more the
Yeah,
like, the just a band shirt, jeans, pair of Chucks or
yeah.
Vans or whatever, and had kind of grown out hair. I went to Catholic school, so I couldn't
Mm.
have full out long hair really, but
Yeah,
later on I went, long hair, but I never was that interested in the makeup and hair, big hair, and not too many of those and the look especially. Now, like I say, there were bands that I was like, man, I like their sound, but there were far more that I
yeah.
didn't like. It went, yeah,
Well, if you think about it seemed like it became more extreme towards the late '80s. That
yeah,
whole the whole look. I mean, Poison did it, in middle '80s, but later on, you had like Tough, Pretty Boy Floyd,
yeah,
and those bands, Rocks Gang. I love all those bands. They were so over the top. and that was
Yep.
kind of when it was all dying out, you know.
Yeah. 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 Those bands were still doing it. They just didn't get their record deals till later in the game, you
Yeah,
know.
I know.
Um, um so yeah, back to man, you know, finishing it off, how I think people need to go back and check out Theater of Pain.
Yeah, see, like I said, I found Shut the Devil first, and I remember when I first heard Too Fast for Love, I didn't know what to make of it, like because it was so different, and
Yep.
his vocals, I'm like, and I was like, man, how old is he? He's like 12 years old. I was like, you know, what I mean, because
Yeah. All right.
and you know, after it grew on me, then it became one of my favorite records of all time. But like when I first heard it, I was like, man, this can't be the same band, you know, like
Yeah.
that
And
singing
that
Looks at Kill, you know.
and like you said, I remember an interview with Nikki Sixx where he said definitely with those five albums from the 80s that he made an effort for it to be a different band, a different look, a different
Every
in one
album.
point that he made every album, every logo is different.
Yep.
And that was one memorable thing I remember him talking about in an interview. Was that, and looking back, I'm like, damn, he's right. You know, I
Yep.
mean, and with Theater of Pain, I think that's where they blew the fuck up with Home Sweet
Mhm.
Home, and then
Yeah.
Girls, Girls, Girls blew the fuck up, and then Doc Feel Good really was, as far as popularity,
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think
They
that
were
was the
like,
top. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
then everything that was putting out on that album was hits, you know.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like and that's taking a big risk for bands to do that, you know, to change up every album. Because you know, but it's funny because you get people say like, "Oh, Ramones, AC/DC, every album sounds the same. It's the same record over and over again." But
Slayer,
then, yeah, you know, they complain about it, but then when a band changes their style, like, oh, like they changed their
Slayer,
style, I don't like it. So
yeah,
nobody's ever happy. But
right, right, right.
Motley Crue did it good. I mean, like,
They did.
you know,
Yeah.
like
And even
they stay
probably even
consistent.
in the 90s, the albums in the 90s, I just had moved on, you know.
Yeah, and
In,
yeah. I mean, there's
um
some songs I like on those records, but yeah, I'm into different shit by that point.
well, yeah, and I know we have, you know, people that mutual friends, people that have been on the, you know, this podcast with us. Sam the Man liked him in a lot of their 90s stuff, right?
Hmm.
You know, Justin Sane, he fucking loves everything Motley Crue.
Yeah,
I mean,
Matt.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Matt, right, yeah. So I mean, it goes without saying, Motley Crue, one of the biggest rock bands, especially in history.
yeah,
In history, yeah,
yeah. One of the most influential and everything, man.
yeah. But with Theater of Pain being what's crazy to us, their most underrated album, when to you and I, it was one of their biggest albums, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Because I mean, we were kids then, but we were there when it was happening, you know?
Oh
We
yeah.
were seeing it how we were seeing it. We weren't how awesome if me and you went and saw them at like the Ohio Center in '85 or something,
Oh
man.
man, fuck
We'd
yeah.
be talking about it to this day.
Yeah.
You
Hell
know?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, that's why that album, man, needs to get talked about more.
I agree. It's I never got the hate. I don't know what it is. Like I know Trex always loved it too. Like and it's weird. It's like you either love it or hate it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's one of those things.
man. And I the only thing I could come up with is with the people that may have got into them after it and how huge Dr. Feelgood was,
Hmm.
um, might push away, you know. I mean, Shout at the Devil is, I'll say this. I think that, and then secondly, Too Fast for Love, as far as classic. I mean, if I think Motley Crue instantly, my mind goes to like the Shout at the Devil
Yeah.
type style.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, so And their biggest hit probably off of that album, but yet it rarely gets recognized. And like you said,
Yeah,
even
like
from
go ahead.
well, I said like you even said, even from them, they don't even
Yeah, I
the dudes
know.
in Motley Crue, yeah.
Yeah, like back to Whole Shot the Devil, like if you think about it, really, that is probably their best album, like best songwriting and everything. Um, but
I don't
too
disagree with
too
that.
fast for love is there's something about that record. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
I don't know
Well, it's
what
not
it is, but
I
like,
think
but
it was something new then.
yeah,
We just did this newer bands. It was, Nikki Six, everybody, if you know your history of it, was a part of that LA scene and was trying to really do his own band. And he came up with it, man. It was Motley Crue, and it was early 80s. And I would go as far to say, for me, Motley Crue was the first band of that 80s era of rock bands, hair bands, whatever the fuck people categorize it or call it. It's all the same goddamn thing.
yeah,
And I'll even go as far as say they were one of the first bands to get signed of that and really start blowing the fuck up.
they were my first favorite band when I was 10 years old. You know, it's
Okay.
I
They
mean
were
they're
my second. Twisted Sister was my first with Stay Hungry. And
yeah.
then when Theater Pain hit, I was with you on it. And then I went back like you did, got Shout at the Devil. Too Fast for Love came a little later for me too.
Well, like I said, too, Shot
Uh,
the Devil was the first one I got into.
right, I know.
Yeah,
But you said for you, you went back to Too Fast for Love.
yeah,
Well, with me, Theater Pain was the first one for me, and then I went back to Shout at the Devil, and then it wasn't until like late 80s, even probably into the 90s, that Too Fast for Love really hit for me how fucking awesome it is also.
yeah. Because when I remember seeing the Looks Like Kill video, and it was like,
Yeah.
I remember I was like, man, this is amazing. Man, these dudes look cool. You know, like they're scary looking, and
Yeah.
and then I remember my dad taking me to Kmart, and with my allowance, he's like, pick out something. And I remember seeing the Black album cover, man,
Hmm.
and taking it home and like opening it up and seeing all them in there, man, and then so fucking awesome. Like that.
Yeah,
And
that
it
was
had the
the experience.
lyrics. I remember making copies of the lyrics and I was passing them out to kids at school and shit. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, I was so into it, dude, and changed my life. If it wasn't for
Yeah.
that record, man, I
Yeah.
don't know.
And a few of the things you just said goes back to pre-internet, us being kids, and for me, and I'm pretty sure it was very much the same for you, how exciting it was to, like you said, either go get something you knew you already wanted, cassette, because either one of us were getting a cassette,
Yeah,
or seeing something that was like, I gotta have this and not
yeah,
know a fucking thing about it.
yeah.
But you just knew you had to have
Mm-hmm.
it. And that was, I don't know what else to compare it to for people now, but like so many things in life, man, the internet is such a double-edged sword where everything's available and that's awesome.
But
But
it's
then
not as
again,
fun.
it's not as fun and it doesn't take away from the adventure. It was a
Yeah,
fucking adventure to go to Buzzard's Nest Records
yeah,
and see all the fucking awesome t-shirts. And like I said, shit that you didn't know what it was. And like, you're like, all right, yeah, I got to save like $7 or $8 to come back a few weeks later to get that cassette.
yeah. Like
That was,
nowadays, I don't even know what album covers look like anymore. Because
yeah,
like
yeah,
you got Spotify and YouTube Music and all that. And, you just listen to it. Like
yep.
you don't go through album covers like, oh, I'm gonna check this band out. It
And
just
like
you
you
play the
said, the
song.
experience of getting it home, opening it up,
The smell of a
unfolding it.
cassette. Remember the smell of the cassette,
Yeah,
man? Fuck yeah, it was
it
so
did. It had a very distinct smell. You
yeah,
are right. You
yeah,
are right. And then remember when the clear ones started coming out? I
yeah.
thought they were so fucking like cool, like because it was different. It was
Yeah.
different. It was exciting to open it up, see if there were lyrics, see different pictures, and another one which we'll probably talk about at some point is that's how you discovered a lot of other bands because these bands would do thank you
Yeah. I was
lists
getting ready to say that. Yep.
and have other bands mentioned that
Yep.
once again you'd be like, oh, if these dudes like them or they're their friends or it
They got to
sounds
be
like a
good.
cool band name,
Yep.
you want to go seek that out. And
Yep.
seeking that out wasn't pulling out our phone or our tablet or laptop and putting that band name in. No, we went the next time we went to the fucking record store.
Yep.
We looked for it, or we if a video came on, or if we asked one of our neighborhood buddies or people at school, "Hey, do you know about this band?" Like
Yep.
that's how you fucking networked it. Then that's how you found out about shit,
I said you
and
go to
that's
Buzzard
how,
Nest and like they do you have this?
yeah,
Do you have this band or whatever? And like and then I'd even be like, have you heard it? What do you think of it? A lot
yeah,
of times you go in Buzzard's Nest and they're playing like new records.
yeah,
I'm like, oh,
absolutely they would be.
what is that
Yeah,
you're listening to, man? I want that.
yep, yeah. That Buzzard's Nest for me, man, was I I didn't realize it till years later how fucking awesome that place was
I
and
know.
how important it really was for me.
Yep.
Um, just I've seen pictures that people you may have some of them like when bands would do in stores there. I remember there was a Fraley's Comet in store
Yep.
there, Dangerous Toys in store there,
I met the Faster Pussycat when they was there.
Faster Pussycat, and even early a dude I used to work with. Well, there was one back in the early '80s with Quiet Riot.
Damn.
Yeah, and he had pictures from that. So it was probably '83 or '84 when he had those pictures. I mean, just because I've talked about this before. I didn't go start going seeing to go see bands really until '90. I saw a couple in '89, but nobody really. Some local bands, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
which was cool to say I saw them. But to even go to an in store and see like the dudes in the band or get something signed, you get a flat. If nobody knows
Yeah.
what the flat was, you know what it is.
Yeah.
Get that signed, or they would have free posters, or you fucking buy the cassette, or and have them signed, or already have it if you
Yeah.
hadn't already
I
bought
still
it.
have the Faster Pussycat signed. Still have that cassette.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And back but that was our social media back then. We didn't have Twitter,
Yeah,
like
nothing internet. Yeah,
find out what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like you have to
yeah.
go there and meet them and talk to them, like read the magazines. You can't just
Right.
go on your phone and like, oh, what we're at tonight, or
Yep.
what we're up to when the new album comes out or whatever.
So, what were some of the magazines you were into then? Because it's
Um,
going to be the same ones I was.
Metal Edge. Metal Edge
Okay.
was probably my favorite. Hit Parader was awesome.
Fuck yeah.
Circus.
Circus. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I had
sure.
like subscriptions to all three of those.
Yeah. Rip. Rip came a little bit
Rip.
later.
Yeah.
86,
Krang.
87. Which one?
Krang.
Krang. Yeah. Krang was the European one.
Mm-hmm.
Cream, even.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of stuff, like I said, early Cream stuff. Um, and for me, too, my dad ended up getting a subscription to Rolling Stone. And everyone, they would, even in the late '80s, there would be, shit in there that I liked checking out or reading on, whatever. But yeah, I was definitely Circus, Hit Parader. You go to the, grocery store, the
Yep.
pharmacy or whatever, and every month, man, you knew when a new one was going to be out. Um,
Yeah, man. I remember I'd go to the grocery store with my mom and I'd be like, I'll be at the magazines,
yeah, me too.
Yep.
Right, me too. And
Find
I
me when
had
you're
a
done.
subscription. Yeah, I had a subscription to Rip magazine for I think most of '89. Yeah,
Yeah, I had Metal Edge, Circus, and Hit Parader. I still have a bunch of those laying around here too, man.
Oh, next time. Well, if we hang out tomorrow, I want to see some.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
some. A lot of them I've ripped out like posters and shit, but
yeah,
I'll dig them out and we'll fucking go through some shit, man. Don't bring back
yeah.
some
Do
memories.
that for real. Dig a few out. Yeah,
Fuck
yeah.
yeah. All
Well,
right,
that's all I
anything?
got, man.
All right, next week's topic. Since we're talking about the whole Motley Crue thing, top 5 bands that's changed their sound. So
Okay.
it could be for the good or for bad.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
5 and
Five and
out.
out.